Hello, and welcome back to the World Pipelines podcast, a podcast series for pipeliners, featuring short, insightful interviews with people in the oil and gas pipeline industry. I'm your host, Elizabeth Corner, and in this season of the podcast, I'm talking to people from membership associations for the pipeline sector. Throughout the series, we're exploring exactly what these associations do to move the midstream sector forwards and to support pipeliners all over the world.
The World Pipelines podcast is brought to you by TD Williamson. Looking for the safest inline isolation solution on the market? Look no further. The Smart Plug inline isolation system from TD Williamson delivers with double independent energized seals, giving you unmatched protection on every project. From maintenance to emergency repairs, the Smart Plug offers the safety and reliability that pipeline operators depend on. Ready to upgrade your next project? Visit tdw.red/smartplug to learn more.
Here we bring you episode 2 of the World Pipelines podcast, in which I am pleased to welcome Beth Worrell, who is the Managing Director and Chief Legal Counsel of the Pipe Line Contractors Association, or the PLCA, a position she has held since 2017. Prior to joining the PLCA, Beth was Senior Counsel at a multinational law firm in Washington, D.C. A labour and employment lawyer for nearly 2 decades, she specialises in union labour relations, negotiation of collective bargaining agreements, and related labour management issues. The PLCA represents the union contractors that build and maintain the USA's energy infrastructure. Hello, and a very warm welcome, Beth.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to our discussion.
We'll start off with an overview, if you will. So perhaps you can give us an idea about the PLCA's mission and how it serves the pipeline construction industry in the USA.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned in your intro there, the PLCA is the organization designed to support the union contractors here in the United States that build and maintain, our energy infrastructure, our pipelines and facilities that crisscross this whole country. And so we have a nationwide footprint, and we work with contractors all over the country. But sort of the threshold of requirement for membership is that they be signatory to the labor agreement that we negotiate. So we have approximately 100 different contractors, subcontractors, and different service providers that work alongside the unions out there in the field to build and maintain this infrastructure. And then as an association, we also have about 100 or so members that are the suppliers, the equipment, dealers, the vendors, and so forth that support that construction that goes on here in the United States. So our job, our primary job at the PLCA, is to negotiate and administer those labor agreements. We have 4 different unions that work in the pipeline trades here in this country. And so we work closely in partnership with all 4 of those. Like I said, negotiate those contracts. And then our members are bound to what we negotiate. And so then we become sort of their labor relations advisors. We advise them on how the contracts apply, what they're required to do, and we just support them in their compliance with those contracts. And we've been doing that since 1947. We have a long history here in this country alongside those unions, and so we're proud of that history and all the work we've done here in this country.
That is a really useful overview, so thanks for that. And more specifically, what types of companies and professionals are typically joining the PLCA? And I wonder if you have seen that membership evolve over the years.
The primary focus for us are the folks who are actually doing the construction on the ground. So we have contractors and construction firms. Those are really our bread and butter of who our members are. And so those are the folks that are, clearing the right of ways, digging the trenches, welding the pipe, putting that in the ground and getting it operational for their customers, the operators of those pipelines. Those range, those can be big companies. We have a number of, conglomerates that are probably operating in other parts of the world and are known sort of internationally. And then we have some really small, privately owned mom and pop kind of outfits that might have a much smaller regional footprint and do maybe just a segment of the work. But we do it all, from taking down the trees, putting the pipe in the ground, to putting the trees back where they were when we got there. So there's about 100 of those companies in our association. There has been a change, I would say, in what those companies look like. And it's not unique to pipelining, but just as the economy and the way that people do business, certainly in this country, has changed. Whereas in the early days of this association, you had one company that got out there and was responsible for the whole project, right? They were doing it all. Now, I say oftentimes to folks, we're really an association of subcontractors in a lot of ways. We're a much more specialized, folks have a much more specialized lane that they seem to focus on. So we have clearing contractors, stringing contractors, drilling contractors, right? And so it's become much more segmented, and all of those groups work together, obviously out there on that construction project. But it's not this. There are far fewer companies that really do all of it all by themselves. And so, like I said, from dewatering to blasting to trenching, I mean, there really are very segmented operations here now. So we support all of those, and we've had to sort of adapt as the nature of these companies has changed and what they're going to be looking for from us. But altogether, the product at the end is still the same.
Really interesting to hear you talk about those specialized and segmented companies now and how that has changed. So these companies, be they big or small, they join. What are some of the key benefits or resources that PLCA members enjoy once they're signed up?
As I mentioned, the leading part of what we do is to help manage this relationship with the pipeline trade unions. When you are working as a union contractor, that can come with certain challenges. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean, there's complex labor agreements that we negotiate that they're required to be in compliance with. In the United States, there's a robust, federal regulatory scheme around working with unions and governs those relationships. And so what we are able to do is really be that centralized sort of labor relations department almost for each of these contractors, so that they are not on their own trying to navigate that relationship, figure out answers to these questions, particularly around contracts that they're not negotiating, right? We sit across the table from these unions and we negotiate the contracts. And so we really pride ourselves on being able to make that seamless for our members, make sure that when they're out there and they're running the day-to-day project, that they understand what's required of them, that they're doing it, in good faith and full compliance with the labor agreements. And so that is really first and foremost, I think, what draws people to us. We've certainly had. You're not required to join our association if you work under our contract. And we have certainly heard from different companies over the years, when they first started and they signed the contract and they're out there on their own versus when they came in and they had us as support. It just obviously goes a long way. We have deep relationships with each of the unions, and we can obviously facilitate solutions and address issues if they come up in ways that are probably more challenging if you were trying to navigate that all on your own. That's really sort of first and foremost what we do. But then with that, also, we do advocate on behalf of the industry with the government, state, local, federal government, regulatory issues, things of that nature. The way we engage with our customers, the owner operators, the oil and gas companies, we have strong relationships with a number of those customers here. And so all of those things, I think, add some depth and additional benefit to our members, right? When they're out there trying to bid and win the work and then go out there and execute on their projects successfully, we have a number of ways that we can support them when they're doing that.
So as I understand it, you're a partner to these companies, you stand by their side in negotiations with unions, and you're there to offer the kind of support that they might need as they're doing their business.
Absolutely.
So how does the PLCA support the professional development of its members? Do you offer anything on that front?
There's a couple of different answers to that question. What the unions bring to this relationship is the workforce. Right, they are the workers that go out there and build these projects for us. So we work closely with them. We have training funds, training centers. A value of being a union member here in this country is that benefit a variety of benefits that you get, right? You don't just get the paycheck, you get the healthcare, you get the retirement benefit. And a big part of it is you get the training. And so we have a lot of resources that go towards that type of workforce training and development. We take a lot of pride in that. We have training centers that with the unions all over the country and work closely with our customers, right, to make sure that they're getting a trained and qualified workforce out on their jobs. Pipelining is a bit of a niche industry here, and so it really does take a different skill set. It's not the same as building a highway or building a high rise. So we try to make sure that we have that workforce ready, available, and qualified to get out there. Um, and it can be a challenge because, as is often the case in this industry, it's a little bit of a when it rains, it pours, right? If we don't have one project at a time, we have 10 projects at a time. So you really have to make sure you have that deep bench and you have folks that can get out there and do the work. So that's a big part of what we do. And then we have different apprenticeship programs. That's also part of our training, and through the unions. And so that's how we identify new folks to bring them into the industry and get them off to a good start. Um, on the more professional level, we do have a number of events each year, one of which is really focused on safety in construction. And so that's an important part. There's a lot of training and skill development that we try to offer through that programming, and different webinars that we might offer on the labor relations piece. So it varies year to year what we're able to do on the PLCA side, but we do try to focus on making sure our folks have the resources they need to get out there and work safely and manage their crews effectively.
Yes, I wanted to talk about resources. So I wanted to know the kind of resources or advocacy support that you offer to help your members navigate those regulatory or safety standards that they need to meet in the pipeline industry.
Yeah, and it can be a real challenge here because depending state to state where you're working, I mean, there can be a totally different set of rules and requirements, and so some of that falls directly on the companies, and they're responsible for making sure their licensing requirements, their different safety requirements are satisfied. But certainly when it comes to on the safety piece of it, what's required for PPE or protective equipment, what's required certainly on when people are required to have breaks, when there must be rest periods, when we have high heat issues and how you manage that. So those are things obviously that we confront pretty regularly, and that we are constantly in collaboration with our union partners over making sure both the workers out there and the management side, the construction firms themselves know what's required, have the resources they need, that we're empowering those workers out there to address safety concerns and those types of things. So we do work hard to make sure that we're sharing information, sharing resources. Over the years, we've made training videos with our union partners. We had a whole series of a primer sort of manual that we put together. This was years ago and before my time, but very robust sort of explanation of pipeline safety. And we're thinking about redoing that here soon. So best practices are something we focus on a lot. We try and develop and share with our members. So, um, it's sort of it's a constantly moving target, right? As the safety standards change and evolve, and we just try to make sure we're learning as much as we can and working with the professionals in our industry who know best about those types of things, and share with our members what they need to know to be able to execute.
Yes, I certainly see how it is a constantly moving target. And presumably things like working in heat, that's the sort of thing that you'd have to move really quite quickly on. You would need to have your finger on the pulse and know what kind of conditions might be coming up for your members.
Yeah, and for us, it's just identifying, trying to make sure our members are aware if, a state passes a new law that is going to require certain things, then we make sure we distribute that information to our members, try and make sure they're aware of it. If you're working in this environment, you need to be aware of these requirements. Drug testing is another area that comes up. Different states are going to have requirements. Some of it's governed by our federal government. So again, as those changes come, trying to make sure we're educating our members, giving them the tools they need. Obviously, when we went through the COVID pandemic, there was a lot of very fast moving, working with the unions, trying to make sure we were um, you know, just advising our members as best as we could on what they needed to be doing to keep folks safe out there. So you never, like I said, you never know what tomorrow will hold, but we just try to make sure we're ready to support our members when they're confronted with these.
And that leads me to ask you, how does the PLCA address the human factor in pipeline work? So ensuring worker safety, mental health, even things like job satisfaction.
It is something that we've grown more focused on, I would say, over the last several years. And, we recognize that the pipelining can be a really challenging profession. Our folks are on the road, away from home, working in challenging conditions a lot of times. And so it's important to see that human factor in that, right? And to make sure that you have healthy and safe folks out there. I mentioned we have a conference we do every year called our National Pipeline Conference. We really try and focus on those types of issues. Mental health is always on the agenda, trying to educate our folks as to what the things they need to be thinking about and doing to support their employees. Fatigue, the science of sleep and fatigue, so critical. We work our guys, our men and women, long hours, sometimes in difficult conditions, and then we expect them to be right back out there at the break of dawn the next day. And so trying to be aware of what people need to perform effectively and safely around that. That was a big topic for us at the conference, and so we really do try to keep that at the forefront with our members. Another program that we have put together recently is we have something called Pipeliners on Watch. It's not exactly what you asked about, but it's a human trafficking awareness program. It's a training program. It's something the PLCA developed that we share resources with our member companies, and they include information about human trafficking in their onboarding and their safety programs. But with the development of that came, some better understanding of, maybe why is the energy sector prone to having this issue, and what is it that we can do to put our folks in a situation where maybe that they're not drawn towards, that type of activity. So that really opened a lot of eyes, just in terms of the conditions that these folks work in and being away from home and that type of thing. And so we do try to keep that as an ongoing dialogue with our members, with our union partners, and we have a demanding. We work in a demanding industry, and we need to make sure we're doing what we can to keep everyone safe out there, and that's a big part of it.
Absolutely. And it's surprising me how broad the scope of your kind of burden of care is in these sorts of departments. Moving on, I wanted to talk a little bit about the organization's approach to promoting diversity and inclusion within the industry.
We have a couple different things that I would point to as efforts that help us address those areas, particularly when it comes to the workforce that's out there and really working. We do have these apprenticeship programs, a number of them that we have developed with the unions, and those are great in attracting new faces, new voices, just new folks, a more diverse sort of background, perhaps, into the industry. And whereas perhaps once upon a time, you had to know someone or you had to be related to someone, maybe to get your first opportunity out there in the field. These apprenticeship programs really provide that path. And if you show up and you do the work, then you're eligible to be out there. You are guaranteed to get opportunities in the field, and you can grow your career. So it gives you that support system as you're starting, which I think is really some of the hardest times for folks trying to break in. We do a lot of tribal engagement and training here. Certainly, a lot of the customers that we work with and for are it can be challenging to get these projects approved, permitted, when you're going through you know rural lands. There's a lot of tribal land that you can run into on these projects. So this has become a real priority for us in the industry, and so efforts to engage with the tribes, provide training, job opportunities, and just have that build those relationships, share resources with them so that they can be part of building these projects and part of the benefit of these projects. So that's another area that we've really, as an industry, certainly tried to really lean into and have their voices be more part of the industry.
That's great to hear. For the last episode, I talked to Kevin O'Donnell at the PLCAC, and obviously he had a lot to say about collaboration with the Indigenous peoples, and that it's very interesting to hear you reflect his comments
Yep.
so well.
Yep, very similar. I think it's even more so on the forefront for them, but very similar sort of parallel efforts.
Let's move on and talk about collaboration within the industry. So I'm thinking about the types of events that PLCA hosts. How do these gatherings facilitate the kind of networking and collaboration that you think is useful for the industry?
We have two primary events that we host each year, and then a number of smaller, different events that pop up year to year. So we have our annual convention. We get together every February. It's actually just coming up here in just a few weeks for us, and that's our big event that really we draw in. Depending on where things are in the industry, 400 to 600 people are going to come to that event. Our regular members, which are our contractors, our construction firms, are there. Our associate members, which are all the vendors, the suppliers, they're there as well. Plus, spouses and families. And so it's a real fun family reunion type sort of feel at this event. There are folks who, they came when they were a kid and they were there with their parents, and now they're there and they have their children. So our industry in general is a pretty small, tight knit one here in the United States, and so that's really reflected in that event at the convention. And we've held an annual convention every year since I think 1947. So we're about to have our 78th annual convention, and the stories still go way back and that type of thing. Uh, we have certainly focused on at that event really making sure that we put together programming and a schedule that gives people that opportunity to connect, to engage, to find one another, to build their network. So that's everything from obviously just having, we try and always have some different team building activities. We try and have, impactful programming and speakers that can draw some of those connections. We typically will have it changes year to year, but some opportunity for folks to sort of, I would call it exhibitor light, display their information about their companies, be available to speak to folks that are interested in learning more. And then also just try to make sure that we have fun things for them to do at the dinner, and it's amazing how much you can accomplish, standing next to the person at the Papa Shot game or whatever it is, and it gives you a way to connect that doesn't feel quite so sort of business like, and you can connect on a more personal level. And I think that those are sometimes the most effective connections you can make. So we have our convention. We do that every year. There's a lot of fun and activities there. We have our National Pipeline Conference. We do that in the fall. This past year, we did it in New Orleans. 2-day event, again, with a real focus on safety, but also government, sort of our government relations, our outreach, our customer support. And so that's yet another opportunity where we try to bring people together in the room, get those connections, start some of those discussions. Sometimes we'll have smaller sort of breakout times where it's like we gather people up and ask them to work through some questions or some problems, and then we share with the larger group. So try to deploy some of those types of um, you know strategies at these events to really try and break the ice for people. I mean, I think that's largely what we're trying to do, is help break the ice for them so that they can have the conversation they want to have. Um, and and it can be challenging for us because we are such a tight knit community that everyone knows everyone. So if you're the new sales rep for a company, or you're the new company that just opened up or is trying to break into this market, it can be hard. So we try to make sure we give everybody those opportunities to connect. Um, and then we do a variety of smaller meetings, um, lunches, or different things with different pipeline operators here, different other industry organizations. And so those can often be really effective, right? You bring together a smaller group, and then, it really allows those relationships to flourish. So we try to do that. We're looking at starting like a lunch and learn program, smaller lunch and learn program, where maybe we go and visit different pipeline operators or oil and gas companies, utility companies here, make sure they know who we are, what the union contractor brings, what the benefits are of working with our members. Um, and so that's an opportunity where we can bring, we try to tap different members to be part of that. And so again, bringing those smaller groups together and giving them that opportunity to collaborate on a project with us together.
Really interesting to hear how you try and facilitate that sense of community because, as we know, it's the community and the connection and the fun. And when you combine all of that, there is a magic that happens, isn't there, at events? And really nice to hear about the ways in which you bring people into the fold. So you're a close knit community, but equally, it's not going to be intimidating for a new person, right?
That's what we're hoping. Yes, absolutely.
So, as you talk to your members, what kind of emerging trends or technologies do you find most exciting? What's coming up in the future?
What we see a lot of right now certainly is a focus on the energy transition here, right? And so we are extremely focused right now, have a number of large carbon capture projects, carbon sequestration projects. Those are very much something we're seeing a lot of and will provide, I think, just great opportunity for our members. I think that's going to be a real important part of our market going forward. But it's not just carbon, right? Focus on hydrogen, other fuels and things of that nature. So we are hearing a lot from our customers. Again, our owner operators that we work with. Uh, we really try to be aware of what they're focused on, what they see coming, and a lot of this, clean energy or alternative energy, I think, is going to be such a big part of what we're really focused on here. There's certainly a political overlay in this country to all of those issues, and so it can change a little bit. We're obviously right at a transition point, and so we're all kind of waiting to see with the new administration. Maybe are there pieces that get focused on differently or move to the forefront, but just we know from the folks that we work with at the oil and gas companies, right, that this is the direction we're going. This is coming, and these are going to be part of their portfolio that they have. So that's exciting for us. That's gonna anything that puts more pipelines in the ground is good for us, and so we're excited about all of that, and there's really quite a bit of attention, obviously, on all of that. And then the other thing, obviously, that we just hear so much from our members and are always so impressed with is just all the ways in which the safety element of how the job is done just continues to improve, just all of the ways in which the equipment, the techniques are getting safer. People are bringing just new ideas to that's always very fascinating. And so our guys, our folks always really sort of eat that up when we have an opportunity to learn about ways in which they might be able to execute a piece of their project more safely, or just the innovation they bring to the table to try and do things differently is always fascinating. So those are the things that come to mind in terms of what we see coming and that we're excited about.
And how are you attracting the next generation of workers? If we're looking towards the future of the pipeline sector, where are these new pipeliners coming from?
That's sort of the, million-dollar question a little bit, for us. As the world changes and technology changes and things, folks get pulled in different directions and in terms of where their career paths could go. Certainly, we have faced challenges trying to recruit people into the industry. We have an aging workforce, sort of the boots on the ground folks, and the professionals that run the companies. So, in the time that I've been here, I think that was probably one of the immediate things that folks highlighted for me as this is a real concern for us. We're constantly trying to think of what we can and should be doing. One of the things we're really proud at the PLCA is we're just now we've had a scholarship program for years to support the children, grandchildren, stepchildren of our members. And we had some of that was always earmarked for folks that had indicated an interest in coming back in the industry. But obviously that's sort of a different nature of a scholarship program. what we're moving into now and what we're kicking off this year in 2025 is a trades skills scholarship program. So we're going to be working with a number of trade schools and programs throughout the country, and be working with the students that are enrolled there, provide them some additional financial assistance, and then obviously some opportunity to come work with our member companies through internships and get a commitment from those folks that they intend to come back into the industry. We're really excited about that. We're going to probably start small, but really hope to grow it quickly. Finding the folks who have already sort of started on this path is just probably the way to go. So we're excited about working with those schools. So many good schools and programs here that are really trying to teach this, and provide those alternative paths to sort of the four-year college or university. We went through a phase here in this country where it was just like the default. That's what everyone wanted, had to do. And I just think we've come back around to say, no, there's lots of careers. There's lots of ways to be successful. And so the PLCA is really focused on doing what we can to support those folks who are looking for that opportunity. And so, yeah, we're excited that that starts here in 2025. It's not official yet, so I can't give you too many details, but we have announced that it's starting, and we'll have some more details here soon. But that's going to be a great opportunity for us to grow our professional and our sort of labor workforce.
Well, it's wonderful to get the scoop on that. What advice or guidance does the PLCA offer to those young professionals that are coming into the industry? What do you tell them in terms of career growth or longevity? What story do you tell them about working in this sector?
Yeah. Well, it sort of goes back to that close knit community that I've mentioned throughout. And so, you know, you're only going to be successful in this industry if you do it with integrity, right? If you're a person of your word, and people know they can rely on you, you show up on time, you work hard. That gets you a long way in this industry. So, and the same is true in terms of how you're collaborating with your union partners out there, right? Communication is key. We tell people all the time, you got to be talking to people. You got to be communicating what the challenges you're experiencing, the things you need to come to help you get your job done, whether it's up the chain to your superiors, whether it's with your union, steward on the job. Certainly, if somebody came to me and said, what advice would you give? Communication is such a big part of it. You need to be forthcoming with the information so that everybody can work together on this stuff. A lot of it really is just hard work and doing the best you can. I will say the industry is a forgiving one. It's not like folks are expected to be perfect all the time. Mistakes happen, bad decisions. That was a bad call. I could have done better. If it was done for the right reasons or with the right intentions, and you do that kind of thing with integrity, it's family. It really is family here. And so that doesn't mean you won't be successful just because you had a slip up, or a job went bad, or you didn't make money on that project or whatever it is. Folks will support you if they feel like you're going about it the right way. And that's one thing I would say too, is extraordinarily supportive group of contractors and industry professionals that we work with. And so stories all the time about, I got in a jam and I needed some equipment. I couldn't find it. So I called my competitor, and he said, no problem. I'm going to have those over to you tomorrow. We're going to get you what you need. I mean, everybody wants the industry to succeed. And I do think that is always sort of everyone's top priority. So it's amazing how these folks work together. I mean, PLCA is an association of competitors. They're all trying to win the same projects. They're all trying to get out there and do the same work. And yet, extremely open and generous and thoughtful with each other. So it's a real pleasure to work with these folks because they go about it in such a wonderful way.
That's great to hear. I certainly have heard similar anecdotes, and that's always really heartening. So, as we wrap up our discussion today, what do you think, or what would you say sets the PLCA apart from other membership organizations? What is its unique selling points?
Well, we are certainly unique in that we are supporting specifically our union contractors in this country. there's really no other organization that does what we do here in this country in terms of being able to support those folks and provide the guidance and the labor relations support and the work with the unions. You mentioned Kevin O'Donnell and the Canadian Association, very similar to what they do up there. So we are unique in that way. But, I think beyond that, what we're able to bring is a depth of relationship with the owner operators, with the utility companies. We work side by side with them on trying to get these projects permitted and approved and navigating the legal challenges. And that, I think, ultimately trickles down in really positive ways for our members. And so, we take a lot of pride in that and having built those relationships. And then again, because we are the union workforce, just the training that we're able to offer and our members are able to tout the workforce that they have most, highly skilled, best trained, most qualified workforce. That's really, I think, something that we pride ourselves on and think is unique to us. So those are the ways in which I think we stand apart maybe from other parts of the industry.
And to finish up then, Beth, I wonder if you can just summarize for us how the organization adapts to the industry changing over the years and sort of where you see your role developing in the next few years.
Certainly the biggest change over the last recent period of time is the extraordinary effort it takes just to get an infrastructure project, off the ground here in this country. And so, that has become a much larger part of what we do to support our members, to support the customers that we work for. So, government affairs and regulatory engagement is a much larger part of what we do than it probably even was, 10 years ago. And so that's an example of trying to see what the industry needs and respond to it. Similarly, I think just the nature of who our customers are has changed a little bit, and there's always movement on that side of the industry, really trying to build those relationships. I think we do a better job of that now, of really being an ally and a resource for those customers, knowing who we are, that they could reach out to us when they need some assistance. So those are two things I would point to as more recent areas that we focus on a lot more now than we probably did, certainly in our early years. It's a win for everybody if we get a project, built and in the ground. So I like to see that collaboration exists at all levels of the industry, and we're just trying to do whatever we can to help.
Thank you so much. That wraps things up really nicely. Thank you so much for talking to me, Beth.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. Appreciate the opportunity.
My thanks to Beth Worrell at the PLCA for talking us through the broad scope of the PLCA's commitment to pipeliners in the USA. Thanks for listening to the World Pipelines podcast. Subscribe for free wherever you get your podcasts. If you have enjoyed this episode, please rate and review and forward to a colleague or friend.
The World Pipelines podcast is brought to you by TD Williamson. Ready to upgrade your next project? Visit tdw.red/smartplug to learn more.